Our experience is that the biggest thing that keeps you from going from where you are to where you want to be is not the things you know, the tools that you have about how to get something done, or even learning how to market or sell yourself or ask people for money. All those things are valuable, by the way. But it's not the biggest thing that's going to help you make a shift in your life from where you are to where you want to be. The biggest thing has to do with how you manage your internal state, your internal life, your internal beliefs and concepts, the way in which you respond to setbacks and then to challenges. Because guess what? I'm going to let you in on a secret that you probably already know. You will never accomplish or achieve or have anything in your life without setbacks, challenges, and things to get over along the way. It's part of life, right? And so Janet and I, would you all agree that Janet and I have a fairly unique relationship?
Weird.
I would say wonderful.
I'm just kidding.
Frankly. I think that the reason and why, and it may also be weird, but it's a wonderful weird.
No,
from my
only
experience.
playing with you.
The thing that I find that has made that possible is the tools that we're going to share with you now in this lesson and the next lesson. Okay, and one of the first ones had everything to do with how do we respond? How do I respond to upset, to what we refer to as contraction? So what I'm going to share with you we call what's it called?
Nature's guidance system.
One more time, louder.
Nature's guidance system.
How many of you kind of realize that if you're listening, that you're actually being guided all the time? How many of you recognize that, right? Good. So this really is about a way of tuning in and understanding that's very simple. What's the word?
Simple.
And is simple good?
Yes.
Because it's easy to implement, right? It's something that you can do pretty straightforward. And there's not a lot you need to know to be able to listen to this guidance that you're getting. And let's start by just, you can put your notes down for a second. Yeah, just put your things down for a moment. And all of us have had the experience of feeling what we call contracted, right? And what are some words that describe when you're feeling contracted? Just shout them out here. Overwhelmed.
Sad, exhausted, frustrated.
Okay. Overwhelmed. I can't write as fast as you can talk. Sad. What did you say, James? Tense, right? Scared. Stressed. Angry. Stuck.
Disappointed.
Yeah, we all know exhausted. Yeah, we all kind of know this experience, don't we? And if you were to, just sitting where you are, if you were to show me physically what it looks like when you feel really, really contracted, show me right now. Just use your arms and your body and show me what would it look like if you feel really deeply contracted. Now look around the room and just look how. Notice most people, heads down, maybe arms in, kind of contracted, right? And I just want you to notice which way is your energy moving when you're contracted? Inward, isn't it? Yeah, it may seem like it's down, but it's moving inward. When you're feeling contracted, do you feel like going to a party? Do you feel like getting out and seeing people and having a good time? Or do you feel like being by yourself and having some quiet time, or maybe going in nature or doing something that is more reflective in nature? Yeah? Would you agree? Because guess what? That is what you're supposed to do if you're listening to the guidance when you're contracted. That's what nature's telling you you need right now. Now, you don't necessarily need to go and get all depressed and unhappy. What it means is that it's time to go in. Okay? We call it, it's the red light. That's what that dot is. It's the red light. You know, if you were driving and you're going down the road and you come to a red light, what are you going to do? Stop, right? And there's some good reasons for that, because you don't want to get hit, you don't want to hit somebody else, it's an issue of safety. And the same thing is true when you feel contracted. That feeling of contraction is the way life or nature is telling you that something needs adjustment. You may not know what it is, yeah? But there's something that you need to reflect on to be able to take it to another level. Does that make sense? Would you like to know something interesting?
Yes.
What's the coolest thing about this whole process is that the way you'll get the greatest inspiration and the insight and probably the thought that will be the breakthrough is when you're just allowing yourself to do things you love. Do things that are relaxing, that are enjoyable, that are fun, that allow your thinking mind to disconnect. Because how many of you have ever found that when you're busy thinking and thinking and thinking, that's when you feel stuck? I can't figure this out. How am I going to figure this out? What's the solution to this problem? How's it going to come? But when you relax, when you do something that's fun, when you do something that helps you, you go for a walk in nature, or you go for a bike ride, or whatever it is for you that allows you to just go, that is when the solution, the next step, the idea will come. Has anybody had the experience of you had a problem and you didn't know how to solve it, and then you went to bed, and sometime in the night or the next morning something popped into your head? Has anybody had that experience? Some of you, yeah. So it's that same sort of thing. It's when the mind is able to relax, because guess what? Your awareness never stops thinking about the problem. It's not really thinking. It's inviting the solution. And if you want a solution to a problem, the best way to do is to ask for it. Your mind will search for that solution. And guess what? You have all the answers inside of you. You may not be aware of all of them, but the next step is always available to you when you ask. So it's a matter of, can you ask, what's the next step? And then to let it go. Remember, intention, help me out here. Attention, no tension. What's the third one?
No
tension. That's what I'm talking about here, is letting go, relaxing into it. Now, if this is all what happens when we're contracted, what would be the other side?
Joy, bliss.
Good. So we have joy, we have love, we have bliss, we have passion. What else? Excitement, laughter.
Enthusiasm.
Now, do you guys notice anything?
We're bigger.
Enthusiasm. But do you all remember how you were like shouting out this side? And you're coming up with these, but do you notice that they're not coming as quickly as that one? Maybe it's you're tired, I don't know. But where do we tend to focus oftentimes? Over on this side, the contracted side, But there's all this stuff. There's compassion and generosity and what? Forgiveness. All of these things live on this side. And so if this side is how we feel when we are contracted, what would this side be? How we feel when we are expanded. Okay? Open is another word for it, but we use expanded. Okay? So just sitting where you are, show me physically what expanded looks like. What does expanded look like? Look around. Which way is your energy moving now? Guess what? That's what you're supposed to be doing when you're expanded. Surprise, huh? The expansion means that's a signal. These are signals. Red signal, green light, red light. When you feel expanded, passionate, turned on, excited, that's a signal. It's time to go forward. It's time to take action, time to move with that energy. Allow it to flow until you notice that something, you butt up against something, you contract again. And the more sensitive you become to the movement between expansion and contraction, the less severe the contraction will be. Does that make sense? I'll say that one more time. The more sensitive you become to the movement inside of you between expansion and contraction, the less, what did I say? Severe, thank you. Less severe that this side will be. Because you become alert. Oh, I better stop. Come in, reflect. What is it? What's the solution in this case, in this moment? So now, I want to give you a practice. Would you like a practice?
Yes.
Otherwise known as a ritual. Conscious, intentional practice that we choose to make what?
Concrete. Habitual.
Habitual, that's it. So we'll say it one more time. By the time you leave here, you'll know this by heart. A ritual is what? Conscious, intentional. Yeah?
Conscious, intentional practice.
Louder. Come on, all together.
Conscious, intentional practice that I choose to make habitual.
Because, why? It improves my life. Right? Makes my life better in some way or other. Helps me have more balance, helps me to be focused, helps me to perform at my best, helps me, in this case, this particular ritual, helps me to recover or to return to expansion as quickly as possible whenever I feel contracted. Right? Okay. So, I'm going to do this like a little quiz. And so the first, these are 7 steps. How many steps?
7.
7 steps. And the first step is to notice. Notice. Why would notice be the first step? Yeah, you have to realize it. And what are we noticing? That we're contracted, right? How many of you have ever gone through just being contracted without really even realizing you were contracted? Yeah. So the first step is to notice, I'm feeling contracted. The earlier you notice that, the less severe the contraction will be, okay? Second step begins with a B. It's called breathe. So let's practice that one. So everybody take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. One more time, in through your nose, out through your mouth. One more time. So what happens physically when you breathe in? What happens in this chest abdominal area? Expands, right? And what happens when you breathe out? Contracts, right? See, the truth is, expansion and contraction is just like breathing. It's a natural part of life. It will always be part of life. It doesn't matter how enlightened you are, whether you're a legend, whether you're whatever level of life, you're the richest person in the world, doesn't matter. Your life will always include expansion and contraction because it's part of the breath of life, if you will. And so, but breathing, what is it? How many of you have noticed when you feel contracted, it's not unusual to feel some tightness, some constriction in your physical body. Anybody notice that? Yeah. So breathing helps to open you up, doesn't it? And have you noticed that when you take just a few breaths, you begin to settle down immediately? Notice that? And in fact, I'm going to teach you here in 2 minutes a very simple ritual, breathing ritual. How many of you would like to have a little practice that anytime you were feeling upset or worried or anxious or just on edge, that you could do it for 5-10 minutes and you would immediately begin to settle down? And this is, by the way, a great preparation for meditation or for prayer. And so everyone, take your thumb You're going to know this very well. Put it on your right nostril, okay? And breathe in through your left. Now switch, put your fingers on the other nostril, let go of your thumb, and breathe out through that opposite nostril. Now breathe in again through that same nostril. Now put your thumb back on your nose, and then breathe out through the other one. And let's just do that for a minute. Breathe in. Switch. Breathe out. 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 Okay, you got the idea? Yeah, this is a breathing exercise from the Vedic tradition in India. It's called pranayama, but it's in English it's alternate nostril breathing. Yeah, pranayama sounds better. Actually, there was an Indian man wrote to me once when we first did this on a videotape, and he gave me the long Sanskrit name for it. And I asked him, what does it mean? He said, it means alternate nostril breathing. That was cute. But how many of you noticed, even just for a moment, you settle down, your physiology begins to relax? Did you notice that? Yeah. So this is a simple little ritual, simple practice that you can do. And you can do it, it's very good before meditation or prayer to settle the physiology down so that you're in that still open state. It's also very good just if you're feeling tense, feeling like, and then you can just do that for a few minutes. You'll notice it changes your state. So, breathing, notice, and then what's the second one? Breathing. And then ask to be open. Who are you asking, do you think? That's a good one. Your guidance system. Yourself. That's right. If you're feeling really contracted and someone comes up to you and says, Marina, will you go to a party with me tonight? What are you likely to say? No. No. And here I thought it was all about me. And it wasn't. Yeah. So when we feel contracted, we're more likely to say no, right? We're more likely to stay contracted. So the purpose of asking to be open is to remind yourself, okay, please allow me to be open. And then the next one, notice, breathe, ask to be open. And then, so what's the first one?
Notice, breathe, ask to be open.
Go into the feeling. Go into the feeling. And this fourth one goes with the fifth one, which I'll put up here as well. Which is, the fifth one is feel the sensation. Feel the sensation. That's a sensation in your body. How many of you have noticed when you feel contracted, there's often a physical experience associated with it, whether tightness in the neck or a headache or indigestion, stomach, butterflies, all of those sorts of things, right? Because are the mind and body connected? They are. Wow. So what goes on in one affects the other and vice versa, right? And so these things really go into the feeling means if you're really upset, is there some emotion? Actually, I think that's, put that down, go into the emotion, okay? Go into the emotion. There's an emotion associated with it. We feel depressed or we're angry or we're upset in one form or another, especially in the case of a personal relationship. Anyone have that experience? Has some disagreement. And so allowing yourself to go into the emotion, that doesn't mean to promote it, but just to allow yourself to feel what's coming up. If you're feeling grief or sadness, to allow yourself to cry, to allow yourself to scream, not at anybody, but into a pillow or outside or somewhere, to allow yourself to just feel that emotion as fully as you can. That helps it to heal, helps to release that. And at the same time, feel, this is a T, okay? Here. T. There. At the same time, notice any sensation you have in your body and allow your awareness to go to that sensation. Just allow your awareness to be with that sensation, and you'll notice that it helps the thing to get released. It helps that feeling to run its course. And then, once you've done that, then you're going to use the tools. Use the tools. Now the question, of course, comes up, what are the tools? A tool is anything you found helps you move from contraction to expansion. And typically that's associated with a change of state. What do I mean by a change of state? Barb?
Some kind of movement, perhaps?
Some kind of movement. So if I'm emotionally upset, then maybe walking, going for a walk or a bike ride or working out or dancing, that's a change of state from an emotional state to a physical state. What if I'm exhausted, my brain is like completely fried because I've been working all day on a report? Go to bed. Yeah, that's a change of state, right? Mental to physical. What's another change of state? Get outside and walk. So there are, in our new book, you'll see that we have this model that I'm not going to share all of it with you right now, but I'll give you a little bit of it, of how consciousness expresses itself in our lives, and it's true for everyone. And we all have a core, which we refer to as a spiritual core, a transcendental core, and that core expresses itself through 5 layers. And then my picture's not very nice, but there's a nice one in the book. Okay, and then there are 4 gates. And these 4 gates are the spiritual. What's that one?
Emotional.
What's that one?
Mental.
Bet you know what the last one is, huh? What's that one?
Physical.
Yeah. So these are the 4 gates. That's a response to this, right? And it expresses itself as our inner life and our outer life. This is part of our book. So a change of state means that if you're doing something, if you're emotionally upset, then do something physical or mental or spiritual. How many of you have ever been emotionally upset? You were really upset, and then you read some beautiful piece of devotional literature or went to church or meditated or prayed, and you noticed that really helped. How many of you have had that experience? Yeah. How many of you have ever been completely exhausted, and then you put on some music, some soft music, and allowed yourself to listen to the music and noticed how refreshing that was? Anybody have that experience? Yeah. Or if you, like we said, doing really intense mental work, and then you get up, you take a walk, and you feel refreshed, and now you can start again. These are called changes of state. Okay? So whenever you feel contracted, using the tools means shifting from the state you're in to to one of the other 3 states. Does that make sense? If you really want to do this and have it really be effective for you, what I suggest is you make what we call an emergency use sheet. What's it called? And what that is, it's kind of a list of all the things that you know help you to feel expanded when you're feeling contracted, when you've been contracted. Because when you're feeling really contracted, are you more likely to remember or forget the things that will help you expand again?
Yeah.
Forget, right. So your emergency use sheet is kind of like to make a list when you're not contracted that you can refer to when you are. It says, oh yeah, I could go for a walk in nature. Wow, that would feel great. Or I could get some bubble bath and some lavender oil and some roses and put them in the bathtub, and wow, that would feel awesome, you know? So in our book there's the goddess ritual. The women I'm sure will love, which some cream, some rose petals, some lavender, some other little ingredients, and some soft music, and whole new state of life. Yeah? All right, and then the last one. Last one really applies when your contraction is in connection with someone else. And this stands for communicate clearly. What is it?
Communicate clearly.
Communicate clearly. So I'm going to just share with you what that means. So communicating clearly. How many of you are in or have been in a close romantic personal relationship in your life ever? Almost everyone. Okay. So, and how many of you found that communication is a really important factor in your ability to have a successful relationship? Good. So this is from Byron Katie, really very powerful way of communicating that is most likely to get a positive response than other ways of communicating. So, and what does it say? Okay, all together.
I love you and I love me.
Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that you necessarily use those exact words, but I love you, I appreciate you, I understand your perspective, I can see how you feel that way. All that falls under I love you, right? And anybody ever had someone give you a compliment and then you could feel the but coming? And what does but do? It negates everything that went before, right? But and connects. It's like a bridge. And so you can say, I really understand how you could feel that way, and this is what I need. That's what I love you and I love me looks like. So these 7 steps are what we call the expansion process, okay? It's how to return from contraction to expansion as quickly as possible. And this is what we would recommend that you create as a ritual in your life. Anytime you notice that you're feeling contracted, learn these steps and begin to practice them. And what I have to tell you personally, I had meditated. Probably many of you know I spent 10 years in long meditation, 8 hours a day. I've done a lot of spiritual practice in my life, many hours and years of studying and learning, and even with that, I noticed that there was this contraction that would happen. And when I learned this and how to respond to that contraction, it was so transformational. Next to meditation and the work which you'll learn in just a moment, it was the biggest thing in my life, and it happened as a result of practice. And so the last thing I'll leave you with before I ask Janet to come up is that just the example. When my wife first met me, she came from Germany, came and spent a few months with me, and we were getting to know each other, right? And she was kind of surprised at first because she'd ask me in the morning, Chris, how you doing? I'd say, I'm feeling kind of contracted today. And I'm so excited about that. And she'd go, what? What do you mean you're excited about that? How can you be excited about feeling contracted? And I said, because I know that I don't have to expect anything of myself today. I know that this is a time where I can do the things that I've committed to, and then I can go to the movies or I can do something fun, because when I'm contracted, that's the time I give myself permission to play, because I know that's the most important thing I can do when that state is coming up. So what it did for me is I came to realize that when I feel expanded, fabulous. God, how many of us love the feeling of being expanded? Yeah. And then when I feel contracted, it still doesn't feel as good as expanded. But I love that it gives me an excuse to play. I love that it gives me an excuse to let go of my expectations of myself. Doesn't mean I let go of my commitments. If I make a commitment, I keep the commitment. But I don't expect anything of myself. I do the best I can and let it go. And that, I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I noticed that my own expectations of myself oftentimes made my life miserable. And when I let go of those expectations when I was feeling contracted, it was like freedom.